Yo! What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. And it is Thursday, February 12th. The weekend's almost here. The Olympics are in full swing. And we're ready to talk sports today. We are ready to talk sports today. We're going to talk some Olympics. We're going to talk some football. We're going to talk some baseball. And we're going to have a heck of a day. If you're watching right now, let me know in the comments. Brad, James, welcome in. Hopefully everybody is enjoying a beautiful Thursday. And hopefully your week is going well. The Olympics are in full swing. And I promised you guys that we were going to talk Olympics. And we're going to do that. Medal tracker right now. US was lagging behind there for a little bit. Tied for second now with 13. Italy is at first with 14. 5 golds, 2 silvers, 7 bronze. Norway has a total of 13, tied with the US. Norway has 7 golds, 2 silvers, 4 bronze. And then the USA with 13 as well, 4 golds, 6 silvers, and 3 bronze. David, what's going on? James, should you join a fantasy baseball league? I think so. I've been running a fantasy baseball league since my senior year of high school. Some of the same people, some are not the same people. TC's watching some hockey right now, and that's really when it comes to the Olympics, the biggest really event that you have is hockey for the Winter Olympics. That's what at least Americans, for the most part, are going to pay attention to. What do we have going on today? Today we have ice hockey. Switzerland beat France 4-0. In the second period, Canada is up on the Czech 2-0. The United States plays Latvia at 3:10, and Germany plays Denmark at 3:10. That's like the big thing that I think Americans are rooting for when it comes to hockey. In the United States, last time we saw them playing in the Olympics, they took it to Canada, and then Canada came back and got the gold from them. So the U.S. men's hockey team has not won a gold medal since Miracle on Ice. They're looking to maybe do away with that. Also today, we've had alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, freestyle skiing, the luge, short track speed skating. Speed skating, to me, I would be terrified to do. I can skate, and I'm not terrible, but I really feel like for as fast as those people go on skates, one wrong move, and you're eating the boards with extensive injuries. Lindsey Vonn the other day, nasty injury, broke her leg. That's great. Like, some of these type of events that people do, there's no way. I mean, how many surgeries has that woman had over the course of her career? Broken bones, tears. She doesn't even have an ACL anymore, I think is what I had read. Something like that. Some of these high-intensity sports in the Olympics are kind of crazy. Here's one thing I will say. I don't think I know what channel hockey is on. I don't know if I'm sure what channel it's on. We have more hockey tomorrow, women's hockey tomorrow as well. The luge would be fun. The luge would be a ton of fun. Either curling or luge. Like, if you said, Kyle, you could pick one event to partake in for the Winter Olympics. One event. I am going to go with either the luge or curling. Those would be the two that I would be the most interested in participating in. The United States during the last Winter Olympics, what'd they finish? 1, 2, 3, 4. They finished 5th with 25 medals. They're in 3rd right now. That was 2022 in Beijing. During the summer, we wrecked it. Peacock Plus? Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't need that. Summer Olympics. A couple years ago, United States rolled over there. That was in Paris. Now they're in Milano. Italy. So Norway just broke a tie because they just gave another medal out, it looks like. What's up, Disabled Danny? It looks like Norway just broke the tie. So Norway is now at 14 medals. Austria, 2 behind the United States. How is Canada all the way down? They only have 6. They only have 6. I'm going to need Canada to pick it up. It is essentially always winter in Canada, okay? I'm going to need you to pick it up, Canada. If there's anybody that's Canadian watching the stream right now, then I apologize if you're offended. Hockey will be the fun one. Hockey is always the fun one during the Winter Olympics. Trying to see if I can find the groups. You've got 3 groups for the men. Switzerland, Canada, Czech, and France is Group A. Group B, Slovakia, Sweden, Finland, Italy. Group C is Denmark, Germany, Latvia, USA. You would have to assume, that we are on a collision course of the United States going up against Canada once again. I would assume, again, I have not followed hockey nearly as closely as I have in the past. I would assume that the USA can get out of Group C pretty easily. I don't see a scenario in which they don't get out of Group C. Because it is round robin to begin with. I believe round robin to begin with. And then after that is when they'll go into the final stages. And TC, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. The women only have 2 groups. The USA is 4-0, though. They have 12 points right now. Sweden also has 12 points. U.S. plays their first game this afternoon at 3:10, right? That's what I said earlier? Yeah, 3:10. I'll be watching that. To me, the Olympics are kind of like the World Cup. Not everybody pays attention to what's being done in those sports outside of every 4 years. I'm not a soccer fan. I really cannot watch soccer. I'll watch soccer during the World Cup because I think it's fun. The intensity, the level of athleticism and competition. I think that brings out the best in everyone. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. Like real true, like diehard soccer fans will be like, oh, well, you only watch you only watch soccer during the World Cup. Yeah, so who cares? Who cares? Yeah, well, you don't really pay attention to hockey, but now you're paying attention during the Winter Olympics. Yeah, so who cares? Competition, baby. This is some of the best hockey that you'll see played. If you're a hockey fan and you're watching hockey on a consistent basis, I would be willing to bet that some of the best hockey that you see play all year long is going to be during the Winter Olympics this year. And of course, you want to root for your country. Why not? So for those people out there that are on their high horse about, well, you're not watching. You're only watching every 4 years. I don't care. I'm going to watch every 4 years. I don't watch a whole lot of soccer. I'll watch some World Cup, or I'll watch, yeah, some World Cup games. Why not? It's fun. It's fun. It's good soccer. Crowds are excited. Crowds are loud. Fatal's in the chat. Fatal, you do not want me to shake it right now. I can tell you that much. I can tell you that much. But yeah, if I had to pick, so listen, I want to try curl. I don't understand curling. I've never like sat down and watched it and tried to understand it. Curling looks like a ton of fun. The problem is I don't think I could slide and broom at the same time. I'm sure I would fall over. If with enough practice, I might make it. And what's funny is here in town we have a curling club, and I have always wanted to try it because they have open curling sessions. They have open curling sessions. I think it'd be fun to try. Colin Stone, I'm boring. What am I boring? What's boring about this? I want to try curling. It'd be a lot of fun. I don't think I'd even be able to stand up on the ice for a majority of the time. I can skate. But there's a certain athleticism that it takes to glide down the ice while you are brooming the crap out of it, trying to have your stone, I think they're called stones. I remember also when I was younger, like how the X Games, like when I was younger, middle school ish years, um, the X Games were really big. The Winter X Games, snowboarding and things like that in general. Um, I don't hear. I don't know if it's nearly as big as it used to be when you talk about like snowboarding, half pipe, all of that good stuff. It was when I was in middle school, like it seemed like it was super popular. There was like this extreme sports phase that everybody was in, and you literally could flip on the TV during the winter and you could find some sort of snowboarding competition. It doesn't feel like that anymore. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I did used to watch like a ton of snowboarding and stuff like that. I have been snowboarding twice in my life. Twice. And where I'm from in Michigan, you can throw a rock and you can hit a place that you can go snowboarding. So it's actually kind of funny that I did not go more often when I was younger. Early 2000s, yeah, BMX was lit. Tony Hawk. I think it had a lot to do, if I'm being honest, I think it had a lot to do with Tony Hawk back in the day. Whether it be whether it be these extreme sports in the Olympics, whether it be the X Games, whether it be other things, like Tony Hawk was huge back in the early 2000s. Huge. And like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the video game, I think was probably a big reason for that too. Um, it's kind of interesting how it's for the most part Bam Margera, yeah. Yeah, he did stuff too. Yeah, it's interesting that it feels like it's kind of fate, like it, maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's obviously, but it feels much more niche now where you're either in it or you're not. Ryan Sheckler, was that, didn't he have a show on MTV called like Life of Ryan? He was like a young kid, right? Rob Deerdeck turned skateboarding professionally into his own shows too. But yeah, I think a lot of the extreme sports stuff has to do with Tony Hawk. I think it has a lot to do with Tony Hawk. And that's why it got to be so popular in the early 2000s because of how good he was. And I don't know if there's anybody in the sport that's even close to that these days. I don't know. But we'll see what happens with the Winter Olympics. We'll be rooting for hockey. Maybe try to throw it on a little bit if I have the opportunity to. I do not have Peacock. I keep switching my streaming services. Like I'll do Peacock for a month and then I'll cancel it. And then I'll do Netflix for a month and then I'll cancel it. I do have Disney and Hulu though because I got it for like $5 a month. Travis Pastrana, yeah, for dirt bikes, yeah, because like dirt bikes was it was big for it was big for the early 2000s as well. All extreme sports really were big for the 2000s. Chloe Kim rips half pipe. Watching snowboarding is fun. I couldn't do anything that those people do. I could not. But we spent some time talking about the Winter Olympics, favorite sports, what we'd like to do. Let's move on to a sport that I know a little bit more about. It's baseball season, baby. It is baseball season. Pitchers and catchers are officially reporting, showing up to spring training, ready to go. Some hitters are showing up as well, but they'll be flowing in over the next week. As soon as the Super Bowl finishes, baseball is on the clock. And we really probably, if you even like baseball a little bit, enjoy it right now because there is a really good chance that we will not get baseball next year. There is a really good chance that we are not going to get baseball next year, which means we also need to enjoy the World Baseball Classic this year because we'll get it this year, and I am not entirely sure when we will get it again either. It's we Baseball is on a collision course for potentially missing the entire 2027 season if they don't figure some things out, which sucks. It really does. So there's going to be a labor contract coming up with the MLB players and Major League Baseball, and they are going to have to sign a new collective bargaining agreement. And there are a lot of things that are going against a deal getting done quickly, and not jeopardizing the 2027 season. Because there are a lot of people who are going to be in favor for a salary cap. And there's going to be a lot of people who are not in favor of a salary cap. There are going to be people who... It's going to be hard to put in a salary cap when you have such a huge discrepancy in payrolls as it is already. And I don't know how they get to a point where they come to an agreement that doesn't end in the 2027 season being locked out. I don't know how they get there. If they do, that would be incredible. I don't know how they get there. It just doesn't seem realistic to me. So this year is about enjoying the game of baseball because you might not get any baseball at all next year if they are not able to figure it out. If they're not able to figure it out. Is it about the Dodgers? Yes and no. I mean, the thing is this goes in cycles. There's always a team that's going to spend a ton of money in baseball because, again, you don't have a salary cap, so you can pay whoever whatever. But, like, there was a time when the Yankees were hated because the Yankees would sign and give money to everybody. Derek Jeter, Mark Teixeira, Alex Rodriguez, Kevin Brown, blah, blah. I mean, Jesse, that comes exactly from that clip out of, what is it? With Jason Sudeikis and Jennifer Aniston. What's that movie called? NFL players want to make NBA money. NBA players want to make MLB money. And NHL's like, you guys are making money? That's funny. I can't think of what. So there's always going to, again, like the Yankees used to spend a crap load of money and people were like, we need a salary cap. We need a salary cap. We need a salary cap. And there was never a salary cap when the Yankees were paying billions of dollars out to people. We are the Millers. That's right. And now you've got the Dodgers that are spending a ton of money. Now the Dodgers are doing it at a little bit more of a dramatic rate, but that's because we're in a different time where you just have to pay more. That's just where we're at in sports these days, right? The longer you play the sport, or the older we get, the more players are going to get paid. The further we progress as a society, the more money there is to potentially be made. Things are worth more these days. Things cost more these days. My hair is crazy. Don't mind me. I've had a hat on since I got up this morning. The thing is with the Dodgers is like they defer so much money. It's insane. And the Dodgers kind of started this new trend when it comes to deferring money because they paid Shohei Ohtani a gigantic contract. And they deferred the money out over like 30 years. If you've heard of Bobby Bonilla, this first became popular with Bobby Bonilla. And there's a Bobby Bonilla Day every single year because back when he signed with the Mets years ago, he didn't want all of his money up front. He wanted it deferred out. So every year for like 30 years, Bobby Bonilla gets $1 million from the New York Mets. Bobby Bonilla hasn't played baseball in years and still gets paid by the New York Mets. It's not something that teams did at a dramatic pace. And when Shohei Ohtani signs a contract for millions, and I mean, what was the... Hold on, let me look at the final... I'll tell you exactly what it is. So he signed a 10-year, $700 million contract. 10-year, $700 million contract. But here's the crazy thing about this contract. So Shohei Ohtani is signed with the LA Dodgers. He signed before the 2024 season, and he is signed through the 2033 season. He will be 38 years old when his contract ends. He is being paid $2 million a year. Oh, you said it right there. Okay, not bad, Fatal. He's being paid $2 million a year each of those years. But here's the thing. He becomes a free agent in the 2034 season. In 2034, 2035, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and in 2043, the Dodgers will be paying Shohei Ohtani $68 million a year. So while he's playing under his contract until 2033, when he is 38 years old, he's being paid $2 million per year. In 2034, when he becomes a free agent again at the age of 39, and who knows, maybe he re-signs for a couple of years with the Dodgers. Maybe he retires. Maybe he goes elsewhere. For 10 years, he's being paid $68 million to not play baseball for the Dodgers. And that's where things get incredibly complicated. The Detroit Tigers just did something very similar to this with Justin Verlander. They brought Justin Verlander back to Detroit. I'm super excited about that. But they signed him to a $13 million contract. And almost all of it is not going to be paid for another 3 or 4 years, I believe. The deferred money is insane. They just did it with, I believe, Kyle Tucker as well, with deferred money. So Kyle Tucker, yeah, they did. So Kyle Tucker was considered one of the best free agents on the market this year, and nobody anticipated him signing with the Dodgers. Nobody whatsoever. I didn't see one person say, oh, hey, I bet Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers. So Kyle Tucker has a 4-year deal, but he can opt out after 2 years. He's getting paid $55 million in 2026 and 2027 at the age of 29 and 30. If he decides that he wants to remain with the Dodgers, he can opt in for $50 million in 2028 and opt in for $50 million in 2029. But then in 2036, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45, for those years, he's going to get paid $3 million a year by the Dodgers to not play baseball for them. That's where things get complicated, because you have all of this deferred money and you want to institute potentially a salary cap. Well, how is this money going to count towards the salary cap? I'll look up Juan Soto right now. How is this money going to count towards the salary cap? Right? Because if you're paying all this money to these players over the next 10 to 15 years, dude, my hair is insane today, but it's bugging me. Is that money, like, that $68 million a year that they're going to be paying Shohei Ohtani for him to not play with the Dodgers, is that going to count towards the salary cap? MLB will never have salary caps due to the drastic difference in sizes of the markets and because these kind of contracts already exist. If there was a salary cap, it would have happened in the 80s. I agree with you. I agree that it's hard to add a salary cap now when people have already found these things. They have already found ways around these things. But that's why a lockout is probably going to happen. Because people are going to want a salary cap. The players are not going to want a salary cap. Nobody's going to agree to it. And at the end of the day, we're going to get screwed because there's not going to be a baseball season. Because they're not going to be able to come to an agreement. For Juan Soto doesn't have any deferred money. Bro, I've got ads all over the place. I can't see. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so he was paid last season by the Mets. He was paid $122 million. Moving forward, $46 million. So he's signed all the way through 2039. He can opt out at the age of 31. So after his age 30 season in 2029, he could opt out of his contract. If not, if he doesn't opt out then he will probably finish his career with the Mets because he'll go through age 40. But he was paid $122 million last year, $46 million this year, $42 million next, 46 and 46, and then basically $46 million the rest of the way. So Juan Soto does not have any deferred money. So like I just mentioned with the Tigers, they just signed Justin Verlander. He's 43 to a 1-year deal for $13 million. He's being paid $2 million this year, and $11 million will be deferred to a later date. And they have not specified when that date is. But if I remember correctly, it's not until like 2030. There's probably no more financially more powerful union in the world than the MLBPA. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's crazy because Shohei Ohtani, in terms of payroll hit, isn't even the highest in the league. Juan Soto is number one at $61 million. Zach Wheeler at $42 million. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at $40 million. Aaron Judge at $40 million. And believe it or not, Anthony Rendon, who's now being paid to not play for the Angels, is at $38 million. Jacob deGrom, $38 million. Mike Trout, $37 million. Cody Bellinger, $36 million. Garrett Cole, $36 million. Alex Bregman, $35 million. And yeah, like Major League Baseball, the Players Association has all the power. They have all the power. I don't foresee how Major League Baseball is going to get the Players Association to agree to any type of salary cap. The best thing that you can do is not have a salary cap, but so they have a luxury tax right now. So if you go over a certain threshold, then you have to basically pay a luxury cap hit, which a majority of the teams just don't even give a crap about that. They'll pay the fine, whatever. They move on. They just want to win. Some teams don't care. They'll pay it. It's whatever. So there is that in place right now. But I think you have to look at things like deferred money and basically say, we're not doing deferred money anymore. Or if you're doing deferred money, you can only do X amount of deferred money for X amount of years. So for instance, if you need to do deferred money, say you can do no more than $10 million a year in deferred money that can't last for more than a 5-year span and has to be paid out within 10 years of the contract ending. Something like that, I think, is what they're going to have to do. They're not going to be able to come in and say, oh, we're going to have a hard salary cap of this. Because there's some teams that don't. The Pittsburgh Pirates, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Colorado Rockies. a lot of these teams are never going to come close to a salary cap. They're not. So really what you're doing by instituting a salary cap at this point anyway is you're just essentially looking at teams, big market teams, and say, you have the potential to be too good, so we're going to take that away from you. Where in reality, you should be looking at the owners of the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Colorado Rockies or the Tampa Bay Rays and telling them you need to do more to win. And that's where I think there's a solid argument to be made that it's not the Dodgers' fault for all of this mess. That I think you need to blame some of these other teams too, like the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates are a perfect example of not paying to win. They trade their superstars before they have to pay them money. Jason Bay, he's a big one back in the day. Garrett Cole's a big one. They get these star players, and when they get ready to hit free agency, instead of getting a deal done and signing people, they typically trade them. And it's one of the reasons why Paul Skeens, hasn't even played 2 full major league seasons yet. He's considered one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball. I would argue it's still Tarek Skubal, but whatever. Tigers fan here. Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens are considered 1 and 2 in terms of best pitchers on the planet. And Paul Skeens hasn't even pitched 2 full major league seasons. He already has a Cy Young and a Rookie of the Year award under his belt. Back-to-back seasons with the ERA under 2. And again, at his age, is already considered one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball. And there's already talk that Paul Skeens is going to be traded soon, because there's no way Pittsburgh will ever be able to afford him. So you can hate the Dodgers for spending a bunch of money, but you know who you should really hate? The owners who don't spend anything. We had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I forget exactly what sparked the conversation, but if you're going to purchase a sports team, you should not be purchasing a sports team as an investment. Now, there are some people who have purchased sports teams, aka Mark Cuban, who purchased them at the right time years ago when it didn't cost nearly as much, and then sells his majority ownership for 10 times what he paid for it. Robert Kraft is another one. If he were to sell the New England Patriots right now, they're probably 20-30% more than what they were back when he purchased it. There are some instances where owners absolutely make bank on the profit of selling their team. Purchasing a sports team is not an investment. If you purchase a sports team, you should be purchasing a sports team under the assumption that you are going to lose money. And if you don't want to lose money, then purchase it as a group and put together something like the Dodgers did. Because when the Dodgers sold a few years back, I don't remember how long ago it's been. It might be closer to 10 years. An ownership group with Magic Johnson and others purchased it. So there wasn't just one owner. It was a group of owners, with somebody being the majority owner. The problem isn't necessarily that owners for the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Chicago Cubs want to spend a bunch of money, or the New York Yankees or the New York Mets or whatever. That isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is the fact that there are owners who don't want to spend money, and that's why there is such a big gap. Because you have a bunch of frugal owners that still own sports teams that are more interested in... Listen, here's the thing. If you If you grew up in an era where you clipped coupons, then you shouldn't own a sports team. Yeah. Well, we got a shot. We're in it, but there's always the carrot left. Spend money. If you're going to buy an organization, if you're going to be a sports owner, then spend money. Spend your money. Spend your resources. Now, there's another really, really big caveat to all of this, and it's the fact that so when you take a look at the NFL teams don't have individual contracts for TV rights. Everything's on Fox, CBS, ESPN. The NFL has a collective TV contract. It's not that way with Major League Baseball. Each team is free to have their own contract. The Los Angeles Dodgers TV contract pays them just as much money as what the Detroit Tigers made all of last year. Let that sink in for a second. That the Los Angeles Dodgers, their TV contract on its own, we are not talking about merchandise. We are not talking about sponsorships. We are not talking about concessions or ticket sales. We are not talking about anything other than just the money the Los Angeles Dodgers are paid for their TV contract. They saw just as much revenue as the entire Detroit Tigers organization last year. And Detroit was 7th, I think, in terms of total revenue. I think 7th. So Detroit, the Tigers last year, for all the money that they made off merchandise, off marketing, off sponsorships, off ticket sales, off concessions, all of the money that they made last year off of that is the same exact amount of money that the Los Angeles Dodgers made from just their TV contract. And then you add in ticket sales and merchandise and maybe you signed the biggest superstar probably ever in Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani. Because not only did you sign a player, but you signed an entire country. You did. Because 90% of the people in Japan that watch and love baseball are now Dodgers fans. And they're buying jerseys. And they're doing things so they can watch Shohei Ohtani from overseas. You didn't just sign a player, you signed an entire country. So even though they're paying Shohei Ohtani $700 million for 10 years, they're making probably almost all of that back already. Baseball is an international game where football is not. Basketball is kind of an international game, but not like baseball. Baseball rivals soccer and hockey in terms of an international game. When you see a team sign a player like Messi in soccer, they're signing, but the thing is you see way more players coming from these countries. When you look at Japan, you have Shohei Ohtani and you have a handful of other players from Japan in Major League Baseball. Well, Jesse, okay, so here's the thing. Is football an international game? The NFL is trying to get it there. I'm talking about players, though. I'm talking about players. 98% of the players in the NFL come from the United States of America. If you look at Major League Baseball locker rooms, there are locker rooms where 50 to 60% of their locker room come from countries outside of the United States. The Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Japan. Baseball is an international game when it comes to players coming to the United States to partake in that sport. Hockey would probably be second. Soccer would be third in terms of players coming to the U.S. from other countries to play the game. So when you sign a $700 million contract for Shohei Ohtani, again, you're not just signing a player, you signed an entire country that you can now profit off of. But you know what? If the Pittsburgh Pirates would have offered Shohei Ohtani $800 million for 7 years, guess what? They would have become the most popular team in Japan. They would have become one of the most popular teams in all of baseball. They would have made every single dollar back. But they didn't. Because their owner doesn't want to spend money. Because he treats it as penny stocks. He treats it as investments that have no risk. That's why Pittsburgh will continue to be a team that every once in a while, when there's a perfect storm of prospects that come up together and play well, it becomes a perfect storm of a team that can make the playoffs, but more than likely they will never go past wild card and divisional rounds. They probably will not be playing for an NLCS anytime soon. Even with the best pitcher in all of baseball, or one of the two best pitchers in all of baseball. And that's what it comes down to. We didn't even get into my last thing. My last thing today was going to be Mac's return, because I was on X earlier today for a little bit and I saw this guy. He works for a company, but he specifically does, and I'm not going to name names because I know who this individual is, and I've actually talked to this individual a couple of different times. He basically covers the Raiders for a media outlet. All he does is the Raiders. All he covers is the Raiders. And it was interesting because I read a tweet that he put out earlier today, essentially blaming Max Crosby for the tension between him and the Las Vegas Raiders right now. And he didn't put all, let me be clear, he didn't put all of the blame on Max Crosby. He said that there are reasons to blame the Raiders as well. But he said at the end of the day, like, Max, you signed a contract here. You knew what you were getting into. This was a thing with Calvin Johnson with the Lions for a while, too. And essentially what it boils down to is that some of the blame is being placed on Max Crosby for signing an extension with the LA Raiders. I am not a fan of putting a ton of blame on a player for signing a contract extension when ownership doesn't even seem to be able to run an organization correctly. Because did Max Crosby sign a contract extension? Yes, he did. Hold on just a second. He signed a contract extension. He signed a contract extension prior to the 2025 season. But here's the thing. Some of these players sign contract extensions with a team after a team has said to them, This is the direction that we want to go, and this is how we want to do things. How many coaches has Max Crosby had since he's entered the league now? That's a good question. I'm actually going to look that up. We're going to find out right now how many coaches. Why do you have to perform a security reference for me to access Pro Football Focus? Or reference. Max Crosby has been in the league since 2019. When he came into the league, his head coach was John Gruden. That's one. John Gruden was his coach in 2020. John Gruden was his coach for the beginning of the 2021 season. And then it was Rich Bisaccia, who finished the year. Then it was Josh McDaniels. Then it was Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce, so we're up to 4 now. Then it was Antonio Pierce again in 2024. Then it was Pete Carroll, and now it's Clint Kubiak. Since Max Crosby has entered the league, he has had 6 different head coaches. 6. When he signed his contract extension, you signed Pete Carroll to be your head coach, and it took 1 year for you to decide that Pete Carroll wasn't the guy. Did Max Crosby know that when he signed his contract? When Max Crosby signed his contract, did you tell him, hey, Pete Carroll is probably only going to be here for 1 year? Pete Carroll is probably only going to be here for a season, and then we're going to be looking to go a different direction. If you want to sign a contract extension, we absolutely want to have you here, but there is going to be more turnover. And Jesse, you're right, which brings me to my next point. You're the one that told Max Crosby he couldn't play to end the season, even though he said he could and he wanted to be out there. Why? Now, in the media and to Max Crosby, you're going to say, well, it's because we signed you long term. We don't want to have an issue with an injury that isn't going to heal properly. We want you to take care of yourself. In reality, it's because you were tanking for the number 1 pick. So let's call a spade at this point, okay? Let's not as owners try to sit back and as organizations try to sit back and say one thing when it's clear it's something else. You know what you should have said to Max Crosby? Hey, man, we know that you really want to play, and we get that. There's 2 things here that we want to talk about. Number 1, you are banged up. You have an injury. We would like you to rest and get ready for next season because you are a long-term plan here with the Las Vegas Raiders. But on top of it, we think it's really good for the organization if we get the number 1 pick because we really desperately need a quarterback. You know this, Max. You can see it. We need a quarterback. And if we get the number 1 overall pick, we are going to hold all of the power in the draft with the number 1 pick to either take Mendoza or to move back if somebody wants to come up so we can put together more picks. They have the number 1 overall pick and 10 total picks in this year's draft. So I get that you cover the Raiders. I get it. And the good thing is that you cover the Raiders for a media organization that's not the Raiders. So it's not like you have to protect the Raiders. But let's not sit back and place blame on Max Crosby because he signed a contract extension to stay in Las Vegas. It's not his fault that your ownership group doesn't know what they're doing. It's not his fault that he signed a contract extension and then now is getting another head coach. It's not his fault that he wants to play football because he's being paid to play football. And even though he's injured, he wants to be out there. That's not his fault. He's upset with you because you were clearly trying to tank the end of the season to get the number 1 overall pick. And instead of just being honest and saying that's what you were doing, you wanted to give this vibe and this story to the media that it was all these other things. Same thing kind of happened with Calvin Johnson and the Lions a few years ago. He signed a contract extension in Detroit. They weren't winning. He was banged up. He didn't want to deal with it anymore. He retired unexpectedly. The Lions ownership at the time said, well, we're not going to pay you then. Like, there's a signing bonus that they essentially took away from Calvin Johnson because they were like, you didn't earn this. You're not sticking around long enough. And that put a huge hit in at the time. People were like, well, Calvin Johnson, you knew what you were getting into by signing an extension with Detroit. Football is also a game where when there's money to be made, you got to make money. It's such a violent sport. It's a sport that literally your career could end anytime. And it's like that for all sports. But the possibility of your career ending on any given day is much higher in football than any other sport. Hockey probably number 2 behind it. When you have an opportunity to make money, you make money. That's what you do in the NFL. If you get an opportunity to make money, instead of going one more year and then going to free agency, you typically take it. That's why you don't see a ton of young guys hit free agency. That's why it's not often you see a guy like Breece Hall hit free agency right when he's able to do so. Because typically, if the team offers him an extension, he takes it because he wants to make money. Headliner Nation, that's going to do it for today. We're going to get on out of here. I'm going to assess the stream schedule with the boys a little bit. Lately, it seems like our Monday streams are super solid. We had over 40 concurrent viewers on our Sunday stream, and we only have 6 right now. So if this is a live show that's best suited only once a week, then maybe we'll do that, and we'll just focus on more content, more recorded content to put out. If we're only going to get six viewers on a Thursday because people can't watch on Thursdays, we'll see. Not going to make the change right away, but we're going to keep an eye on it. So I'm going to talk to the boys. We'll see maybe if there's something that we want to do there. Maybe we'll just stream on Mondays. Maybe we'll do Tuesdays instead. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about it a little bit. But for those of you that are here, I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Fatal, Jesse, Kotze, Oliver. Kotze said he won a championship this year, thanks to the boys. It was hard not to with Jason and Puka on my team, though. Yep, you would be accurate. All right, Headliner Nation. Appreciate y'all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. See you, everybody. Have a great weekend.